Hello and welcome to our first RAY Youth Research Dialogue in 2025. We are really looking forward to another year full of interesting and inspiring discussions around youth research findings and dialogues based on evidence-based data. We are planning 5 episodes this year, and we are starting today with a very important topic. Before we dive into this, some introductory words about RAY. My name is Carmen Pöbel-Kiviniemi. I'm the coordinator manager of the European Youth Research Network RAY, which is hosted by the Finnish National Agency for Education. RAY is a self-governed network consisting of 36 partners in 34 countries, involving national agencies responsible for the European youth programs and national research partners. Today's topic is the impacts and the needs of neighboring partner countries' cooperation within the European youth programs. RAY has recently conducted a thematic study in cooperation with the Strategic National Agency Cooperation Beyond Borders and the regional SALTO Resource Centres. The so-called NPC study explores the impact, the potential, the added value, and the challenges of cooperation projects with neighboring partner countries. And we want to investigate exactly these aspects today. We also want to reflect a bit more and go a bit further and share some thoughts and maybe recommendations also for policy practice and research, as well as further needs. Our RAY research colleague, Andrea Horta, will introduce the findings and reflect on their implications. She works for Youth Policy Lab, a small research agency and think tank in the youth sector. She has a background in neuroscience and psychology and currently works as part of the transnational research team for the RAY network. Happy to have you with us today. Our esteemed guest speakers are colleagues and experts within today's topics from 2 of the regional SALTO Resource Centres. We have Sonja Škulj with us from SALTO Southeast Europe Resource Centre. She has facilitated international youth work and cooperation since the late 1990s, first working at the Council of Europe Youth Directorate and then in the European youth programs. She is the coordinator of the just mentioned SALTO Resource Centre, as well as the European Academy on Youth Work. Her focus is on actively supporting youth work and cooperation, including the Western Balkans within the European youth programs. We also welcome Tomasz Szopa. He is an expert in international youth work and non-formal education. He works for the SALTO Eastern Europe and Caucasus Resource Centre, and he had been coordinating over 100 trainings and seminars for participants from Europe and the neighborhood. He facilitated and is still facilitating processes of intercultural exchange, fostering innovation and of structural development across several generations of the European youth programs. A very warm welcome to both of you. We're really happy to have you with us today. Our team is Tomi Kilakoski, who will be our moderator today, and Domagoj Moric, our digital facilitator. And that's from me. Now let's start.
Hello, my name is Tomi Kilakoski, and I will be your moderator today. Philosopher Stanley Cavell has theorized about neighboring. His idea is that neighbors are right next to us, yet they must realize that neighbors are to a certain extent different from us. They are similar but distinct, they are same but still different. And that is why our neighbors will help us to learn about themselves, but also about who we truly are. Today, we will talk about wonderful learning outcomes that working with neighboring partner countries bring about. Before we dive into the discussion, I would like to remind the audience about the great possibility to join the dialogue. We invite you to ask questions either on Facebook or on YouTube chats or via Slido. Simply go to slido.com and type in the code and the code is now displayed on the screen.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. I'm going to present you very shortly information about the SALTO network. My name is Tomasz Szopa, and I work in one of the regional SALTOs for over 20 years now. Many of you probably know the SALTO network, maybe more in the youth sector, but maybe not that everyone knows that it actually stands for Support Advanced Learning and Training Opportunities. That's the acronym how our name is made. We mainly aim on improving the quality and impact of the European programs, the Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps. This work is very diverse. We provide expertise, we provide resources, publications, information. Of course, we organize many educational activities, learning activities, training seminars, partnership buildings, networking activities. And also the diversity of our work is very much reflected in our target groups. We work with a diversity of stakeholders from the European Commission and national agencies of the programs to youth organizations, also schools, universities in the formal education sector. That's where we are active as a network. This year we celebrate 25 years, so we have an anniversary. Join us at our activities for the birthday cake. And with the next slide, I would like to tell you shortly about this diversity that the network represents. So we are 11 resource centers that work in the field of youth and the field of formal education and training. And as you can see, some of us are dealing only with one of the sectors and some of us are cross-sectorial. So first of all, we have the resource centers that are coping with the priorities of the program. So we have the participation and information. Of course, we have the digital transformation and green transition and sustainability. That's the three cross-sectorial SALTOs. But you know, there is also the fourth priority in the programs, that's inclusion and diversity. We also have SALTO centers and even two centers for it because it's one in the youth sector and the other one in the education and training. In education and training, we also have one resource center in Budapest for training and cooperation activities of the national agencies. But in the youth sector, there is a number of the resource centers that are dealing primarily with the youth affairs. That's the Solidarity Corps resource center in Vienna, dealing with the European Solidarity Corps program. That's a training and cooperation based in Germany. And finally, we have three regional SALTOs, Eastern Europe and Caucasus, that I represent, Southeast Europe, that my colleague Sonja, that is today with us, represents, and the SALTO Euromed. Three of those resource centers are based in Poland, Slovenia, and France, and we are supporting the cooperation between the program countries, the European Union Plus, and the neighboring partner countries. All right, and in my last slide, I just wanted to call you for a little action. Please, if you are interested in to know more about SALTO and get updates, subscribe to our monthly newsletter. You will find the more information at our website. We have also LinkedIn page. It's worth to like it, to follow it. We publish a lot of interesting materials coming from all the network in our LinkedIn. At our website, you can find a lot of tools that might be useful for you. That's the European training calendar with calls for participants for all different kind of activities. That's also the place where you can publish your calls within the projects of Erasmus and Solidarity Corps. That's the database of the organization's OTLAS. We also have a database for the youth trainers, and there is one for tools, so-called toolbox. As a SALTO network, we also offer the platform for online learning. That's where organizations are welcome to bring their online contents, and we offer space for courses within Erasmus and Solidarity Corps projects. And finally, SALTOs are collaborating among themselves and also with the national agencies in so-called SNACs or LTAs. That's the strategic cooperations, long-term perspective in the projects that we have. And one of those snacks is Beyond Borders, that my colleague Sonja will present you, the one that is focusing at cooperation between the program and the partner countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomasz, for introducing the next part. So indeed, Beyond Borders is a long-term strategic partnership between currently 14 national agencies and the regional SALTO Resource Centres. And we got together in 21, I think already a few years ago now, to improve the support and the possibilities for cooperation between the program countries and the so-called neighbouring partner countries within the European youth programs, so within Erasmus Plus in the youth field and the European Solidarity Corps. Neighbouring partner countries are what are called third countries not associated to the programs in the program language. And you will hear in a minute a bit more about them. So what do we do in this partnership? We try to work on 3 different levels. We try to support the development of quality projects and partnerships, and we do that in particular through different types of support activities like partnership building activities. We also think it's very important to increase the visibility and the knowledge about youth cooperation involving program and neighbouring partner countries. We have a website for that, Beyond Borders EU, where you find all kinds of information about this cooperation in the youth field, what is possible, and so on, and also various good practices of projects. We also try to provide information for national agencies, organizations, and youth workers, and most importantly for this session, we also initiate studies and collect data. In particular, we have initiated together with RAY the study that we will talk about today. This is also important in view of our third pillar, which is strengthening the opportunities and the framework for this cooperation, which is offered by the programs, so by Erasmus Plus and Solidarity Corps in the youth field. Now, in terms of this study, when you work for regional SALTO Center, of course, you talk to project organizers, you talk to organizations a lot, to youth workers, to different kinds of stakeholders, and you get the feeling that you kind of know what the situation is like, and what are the challenges, what are the benefits of this cooperation. But we thought, nevertheless, it's really important to find out more systematically and to analyze more systematically the specificities of this cooperation, and to see, is there anything that is specific about cooperation involving partner countries, neighboring partner countries, in terms of the motivation, different features, outcomes, impact, benefits or challenges. This is also very important to create an evidence base to support arguments and actions that we might want to take in order to strengthen the opportunities that exist. Therefore, we engaged in this study, and we will hear more about this now, I think.
And next, we will give the floor to Andrea, who will talk about RAY NPC report, the impact and potential of cooperation projects with neighboring partner countries in the European Youth Programme. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tommy. So, as you probably all know, cooperation projects refer to projects within the European youth programs where program countries collaborate together with neighboring partner countries. And here you see program countries in gray, and you see the different neighboring partner regions that we have taken into account in RAY NPC in different colors. You see in light blue the Neighborhood East region, in dark blue the Western Balkan region, in dark green the South Mediterranean region, and in light green light green, the Russian Federation. Next slide, please. So what were the aims of this study, RAY NPC? The aims were to look at the effects of cooperation projects on participants, on teams, and on beneficiary organizations, to look at the needs of these stakeholders, to look at how accessible cooperation projects are for them, and also to see how or if cooperation projects are different from other projects within the program. Next slide. For this, we did 2 surveys and 1 set of focus groups. We took a look at the large data sets of the RAY monitoring survey. We analyzed over 10,000 responses there from youth workers as participants and from young people, and learned about their experiences in cooperation projects and in other projects. Then we did a systematic, specific survey for RAY NPC, and we shared it with organizational contact people and with project coordinators, and we expanded on the findings of this survey with a set of 3 focus groups. Next slide, please. The representation of different regions in our sample was similar to that which we see in completed projects. So well over half of the projects were from the Neighborhood East region, then about 1/5 were from the Western Balkan region, another 1/5 from South Med region, South Mediterranean, and very little from the Russian Federation. And now in the map, you see some of the countries are marked in white, or a bit wider than the others. These were the ones that were represented directly in the focus groups. Next slide, please. Some findings that I want to share about, or some findings that we found in RAY NPC, were that projects do very well at bringing participants closer to Europe, that they're very meaningful for participants, and that they support the development of the youth field in neighboring partner countries. Next slide, please. Here we see the answers from participants in the European Solidarity Course, and we see that they answered in a scale from 0, which is the darkest bar, to 10, which is the lightest. We see they're closest to Europe became a lot more after their project, and the answers from participants in Erasmus Plus are virtually the same. Next slide, please. These are answers from participants in the European Solidarity Course and Erasmus Plus to the question, how meaningful was the project for you? And we see that half of them gave it a 10 out of 10, and the others also gave really high ratings. Next slide, please. The finding that participating in the programs helps developing the field in the neighboring regions comes from the focus groups, and their participants said that the programs bring resources, they bring guidance and standards that they can then incorporate in their work, not only in their work within the programs, but in all of their work. And they also bring credentials, because having been active in the youth field, in the European youth field, makes beneficiaries more likely to then be trusted at national level by the government, for example, and be supported in their mission to further youth policy and to do youth work. Next slide, please. 2 more findings that I wanted to share are that current grant amounts are not enough to guarantee quality, and that beneficiaries from partner countries are not comfortable when it comes to not being able to apply directly to Key Action 1 and volunteering projects, which are 2 of the actions most commonly used, in which partnering happens often. Next slide, please. Here we see the answers from beneficiaries when we ask them what were the main difficulties in their project, and we see financial difficulties, especially for those beneficiaries in neighboring partner countries were the most prominent. Then in the focus groups, they expanded on how this affects the quality of the projects and even accessibility. Next slide, please. And like I said, beneficiaries from neighboring partner regions also shared in the focus groups that it's very difficult for them to have to find other beneficiaries in program countries and have to convince them that they are a worthy partner in order to be able to access these 2 actions, Key Action 1 and volunteering projects. And this makes them not comfortable. This is all I have to share for now. I hope we can bring up more findings from the report in the discussion, and we can also go in depth more into them. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tomasz, Sonja, and Andrea for your contributions. It's time to move to the dialogical part. I'd like to ask Andrea the first question. According to the RAY report on neighboring partner countries, participants of the study reported highly positive results. In your opinion, what explains such a high level of satisfaction?
I think that, so another thing that we also asked in the study is what motivations the participants and the beneficiaries had to join. And I think their satisfaction is related to the motivations, right? The motivations were somehow their expectations and what they wanted to do was somehow met. And the motivations for participants in both programs, the top motivations are doing something new, getting to know new cultures, getting to know new people, having fun, engaging in this way. And so I think when they say they're satisfied, they mean this happened, and this happened in a very meaningful way, as we saw in the results that I shared. When beneficiaries said that that they're satisfied, I think if we look at their motivations, they were related to the topic of the project. The top motivation was the beneficiary was interested in the topic of the project. And the next top motivation for cooperation projects, I'm talking in particular, was to bring together young people from the different partner countries, the different countries that were partnering together in this project. And so I think when they say that they're satisfied, they mean this work. They mean not only could they engage the young people, but they could bring over to them whatever value, whatever topic it is that the project was about. So they could inspire them to be more to want to express solidarity. They could inspire them to think about equality. They could inspire them to think about human rights or about mental health or whatever it is that the project was about. And they could inspire them to feel like they belong together. So I think that both groups are satisfied just means that the programs kind of work in this way. They're engaging enough and they're good at bringing all of these experiences, non-formal learning experiences to young people.
Thank you, Andrea. Tomasz and Sonja, Andrea mentioned the issue of solidarity, which of course is the key area in European youth policy in general. You might want to comment on what Andrea said, but I have a specific question for you. The study states that international social connections, they extend beyond the projects themselves, and the partnerships developed in the projects are positively constructive and mutually beneficial, showing a clear desire and motivation to continue partnering in the future. Now, in your opinion, how important is the strengthening of European youth work community to your work that you do in SALTO?
Shall I go first? I think it's in a way the essence of what we're doing, right? I mean, so what for us is in our work, it's quite natural. We work in this larger context of partner countries and program countries, and strengthening the ties between all of these organizations and strengthening such a European youth work community, if you want. I mean, that's part of the essence of our work. What I found important is that it was emphasized, no? I think also, as you mentioned in this quote, that it's for many organizations, it's about building long-lasting partnerships. It's not just about one-off projects, but it's about engaging in a process of cooperation, which means it's quite intensive, and these projects can also have an impact beyond maybe the people themselves that are involved. They can have a stronger impact on the community, and they can create a longer learning process also for the individuals involved, for the people, but also for the organizations if you build one step on another. And the whole intercultural learning process is also more important and more intensive in a way if you engage in a longer term process. At the same time, we also know that networking means you engage with new participants, when you create new partnerships, you meet new people. So you go beyond the partnerships that already exist. We know that this is quite challenging in a way in the framework of the programs. The way the programs are structured are not making this particularly easy. So that's the other side of it. What I found, what I always found really interesting and inspiring in a way is that this whole European context, so there's the one context by the programs, and that's the political context, of course, that we work with through the EU and the program countries. This whole context which is reflected in the programs, the political context which is reflected in the program structure, and the creation of these neighboring countries expression in the first place. But this, I think, is not, from what I'm seeing, is not necessarily reflected in how organizations and youth workers and young people cooperate. They don't have these borders in mind to the same extent. They cooperate with the organizations and the partners that they're interested in, that they find common topics with, that they like on a personal level, with whom they feel they can work together, and then they can create meaningful projects. This is very nice to see, and very important, I think, for our work.
Tomasz, do you want to add something? Andrea, you wanted to add something. Let's take Andrea first, and ladies first, and then we'll give a floor to Tomasz. Yeah.
Just a quick question to what you just said, Sonja, that beneficiaries and young people find these partnerships, they don't think of the official kind of program lines. I just wanted to underline that I think this is it didn't come in the report, but I think is one of the parts of the added value that if it wasn't possible to partner, then the lines would suddenly be there, right? The lines would be like, oh, you cannot do this, even though for them it feels so natural. So I just wanted to take the opportunity that you mentioned it to underline it.
Now, before I give Tomasz a chance to answer, I would like to remind the audience that you can ask questions, whatever is in your mind, just type it either using Facebook, YouTube, or Slido. And if you use Slido, you will see a code which is displayed on the screen. Tomasz, go ahead.
Thank you. I fully agree with what Sonja said, that bringing people together and putting the relations among the stakeholders, the persons that are behind the projects is the key work that we do. And you asked about the solidarity, the feeling of solidarity. I think it's, especially for the first comers to the program, it might be a little bit abstract, because then when you're starting the international projects, it's mostly a bit abstract. You don't know maybe the partners, you don't know who are you going to cooperate with. But of course, throughout the project, especially when you meet residential, like face-to-face, then you're starting to know colleagues, you know them by their history, by their biography, and then you're developing the empathy that is on a much different level. I can bring an example of, I'm sure that many of us feel a lot of solidarity with Ukraine now because of the Russian invasion over there. But it's different if you know Ukrainians. And there is a lot of examples of the projects that had been developed with Ukrainian partners that really brought a lot of solidarity in such a difficult situation of the Ukrainians. So we could see how the solidarity that is first maybe foreseen and then it's practiced is actually turned into something that is very practical, because it can also bring great outcomes out of the youth programs. But I also agree with what you have been mentioning, that I think young people and youth organizations, they perceive our programs very much as to implement what they are interested in. They do not implement projects because that's a youth exchange or that's a key action one or whatever. It's because of the topics and it's because of the partners they have. And our programs are and should be practically tools to implement what they are into, what's their interest.
The next question will go to all of you. Tomasz mentioned Ukrainian situation, and reading the report made me think about European identity and European values. And the topic obviously is more important and urgent today than it has ever been, I guess. So according to the study, Europe and European values are more frequently addressed in the projects with neighboring partner countries. So in your opinion, what is it about working with neighboring countries that makes it easier to engage with European themes? Who wants to start? Andrea, go ahead.
Maybe also to give some context to the finding. So we see that the topic, specifically European identity, citizenships and values, comes up more often in cooperation youth exchanges. And I think for me, it's a reflection of there being cooperation projects. So a lot of these projects, per project you can choose 3 topics, and so this one is always combined with others. And we see that the others often are about inclusion, often are about human rights. And so to me, it just reflects that these are perceived as European values that are shared by all of these neighboring regions. And they're also present in other projects that are not cooperation projects, that are only within program countries, but they're not highlighted, I think, as much as being about European identity or being about European values. So I think it just means that the interest in having this content in youth work is broader than just program countries.
Go ahead, Sonja.
Sorry. Yes. We have seen that, yes, similar to what you just said, but also the fact that when you work in this context, program and partner countries, or EU countries, maybe EU countries and not EU countries, that these issues related to what are European values, what is European identity, can be questioned in a different way, because you have people that come from inside, that maybe take a lot of things for granted or never give a thought to that, possibly, and have a particular perspective because they're coming from countries that are member states of the European Union. And then you have people that come from other countries, and they have a different perspective on them. Maybe they come from a country that would like to become a member of the European Union, maybe not. Yeah? And so then you have different perspectives that are and different questions that can be discussed in a different way in such a context. And I think that makes it also why maybe this awareness can be raised in a different way in a project that involves such a greater diversity of countries, maybe of people coming from different parts of Europe.
I will move on to the next question. The report, raises a lot of really important questions. One of the key challenges the study identifies is ensuring that the programs are accessible to young people in rural areas and for those with fewer opportunities. Now, these groups are, of course, a challenge for Europe in general. So in your opinion, what are the key steps forward when working with neighboring partner countries? And Tomek, you waited your turn. Perhaps you want to take this one first.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's in our work, that's the key target group, those who are having less opportunities. I think the youth work sector and this aspect of the European programs is a key one. Maybe it delivers from the social work, but it's definitely to offer opportunities for those who have less chances to participate. Of course, we are struggling in the cooperation with the neighboring partner countries that actually this kind of a target group is not necessarily preferred when you are applying for visa and when you need to get your documents for international travel, because then in opposite, you should be the privileged one in the eyes of consuls. But as I said, we do a lot to support these target groups and bring them in the program. But in my opinion, the main challenge that I observed throughout the years of my involvement is that in many countries, the youth work is actually based on projects. Only in few countries in Europe, the youth work sector is supported by governments, by authorities on the level like formal education. So there is more central support to the sector. And in many other countries, not necessarily only the neighboring countries, but in neighboring countries especially, the youth work infrastructure is based on projects. So if you have projects, then you can maintain your staff, maintain your office, your organization. And actually the budgets of the projects in our programs are dropping down. The money is less. Of course, it is still allowing for like basic costs of the project, accommodation, food, and so on. And nobody expects a youth exchange to be hosted in a 5-star hotel, obviously. But at the same time, it does not really allow to support the organization in the growth. So it doesn't allow for the contextual growth of the youth work sector. And only having well-supported youth workers and well-developed youth organizations, we can reach to the young people with less opportunities because it requires more work. So if it's relatively easy to find the participants for the youth exchange that speak perfect English, that are having international experiences, but it takes so much more time to reach those who are less privileged. But I think our programs should be definitely supporting this aspect more.
So Andrea, I would like to hear you expand on the findings you mentioned in your introduction. So some of the difficulties have to do with the way programs are organized. So what kind of support is needed in your opinion?
So relating specifically to reaching young people in rural areas, which was
well in general, I guess, because this is a wider issue. I think how are these program structures actually supporting the work of local organizations?
Well, the two things that I brought about in my presentation, or that I brought up, were the fact that beneficiaries from neighboring partner countries were uncomfortable not being able to apply by themselves, and that they didn't think, or beneficiaries in general, not only from neighboring partner countries, didn't find that the funding that they get for the projects is enough for quality. And I think these two are related to reaching and inviting new beneficiaries, and especially new rural beneficiaries. This is why I started over there, because I think there are three of them are related. And so basically what we have is a position, at least what I got from the people that I talked to in the focus groups, a position where some participants even said it is humiliating for them to have to chase beneficiaries in partner countries and explain to them why it is worth to work together, and also why it's worth to go through all of these extra trouble, right? Like visas are difficult, the funding conditions are not the same, and so this is already a lot of work even for seasoned beneficiaries, and it makes it difficult for new beneficiaries to just arrive and have to do that without knowing very well the program, without knowing very well what how this works. And then the second part was about funding. Like I said in my introduction, the participants of the focus groups said that it is very difficult for them to feel like they can provide, for example, proper lodging, proper food, that they can afford transportation, especially maybe for places that are not so easy to reach, maybe not so easy to reach with budget airlines. And we see that reflected also in the feedback from the participants. We have this open answer question in the survey asking what critical feedback would you give to the programs, and the main point of feedback is we would like a bit better conditions. Of course, not 5-star hotels, but just a bit better. This would be what we would like. And so this also is a bit daunting for new beneficiaries to think, okay, in my rural context, for example, how can I afford to give quality with this budget? So these were the two things that came up, and this is how they relate also to reaching out to more young people.
How about you, Sonja? Looking at it from the perspective of Southeast Europe, how would you answer these questions about rural youth and about the program structures and all of the things your colleagues said?
And all of the things. It's very difficult to come immediately sort of to think about how to move forward, because indeed we have the challenges in mind so much, when we think about this, and that's also I think why they were emphasized. What I think is on top of it, what is the problem that we see, I think, in the Western Balkans, but not only, is of course the brain drain that happens from the region, which is an additional issue, that so many young people are also leaving, particularly rural areas, and they, or small communities, and then maybe moving to the cities and potentially moving out, or even if they don't move, they maybe have it in mind, sort of this issue that they might want to leave if they could. And then at the same time, you have a program structure, which is, I would say, naturally to some extent, we're talking international projects, is very long-term. You have to apply quite a bit in advance until the grant comes, which is difficult, because by that time, the young people might be gone by the time you get the grant as an organization. So that's an additional challenge. But what can we do? I mean, I think I would say organize projects as far as possible that have an impact beyond the participants, also a little bit on the system. So if you do something, if you organize a project that inspires local participation of young people, for instance, in the community, gives them something to do, I think this is very helpful. This supports sort of generally the situation in the country. Or all kinds, of course, around next to the programs, all kinds of advocacy processes at different levels to work with the local authorities, or if you can with the national ones, both in the partner countries and in the program countries, and to work towards, so that we can work on the issues that are also challenges in the programs at the end of the day, on the structural issues. That's very helpful, and I think in many ways people can at different levels take on this a little bit more political role in their work, even if they might not understand it that way. And another thing, quite simply, might be what we're trying to do is create visibility of good practices that exist, so that they might inspire others to follow. Of successful projects that manage to reach out, to involve young people, to involve maybe also young people with fewer opportunities, or that made a change. Share these practices. So there we come back to the networking, what we talked about before.
So Andrea and Tomek, Sonja already reflected on what the youth field can actually do to further support these programs and projects. Is there something you might want to add to these? What can be done? Because we might not be able to change these big structures like funding and so on, but they can certainly do something. So Tomek would like to start.
Yeah, of course, it's our program, especially Erasmus Plus, is a big one. It has a long history. It's politically important. It's also having its own weight. So, as you say, it is difficult to change it. But at the same time, there are certain needs and interests of the beneficiaries that should be actually running and structuring the program, because it's not only the agenda of the institutions, but it should definitely serve the civil society in Europe and beyond. So my reflection is coming from the outcomes of the research, that this cooperation is so positive, that it brings so much outcomes, is so satisfactory to beneficiaries. And from all our meetings and seminars that we meet with organizations, youth workers from across the countries, that they all see the value of it. They want to continue, they want to have more opportunities, they want to have the capacity to run more of such projects. All those findings and needs are going a bit across the developments in the programs. There is less and less projects with the neighboring countries, and we observe the limitations in the budget and also different kind of administrative limitations. Here I see a gap, and I would see on the structural level that's something that we should work closer. And also myself, I'm involved in youth work over 20 years, and I see that maybe we should start a reflection if the combination of the youth program with the big Erasmus Plus actually brought us the benefits that we have been expecting, and if it's actually adding the quality and value to what we are doing in the youth sector. Let's evaluate it, let's see, and let's find the best solutions to develop European youth work further. Thanks.
Is there something, Andrea, you want to add? Okay, yeah.
I was going to say, I think they covered my ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, they covered it wonderfully well. So that's obviously something you have probably reflected a lot. There's an audience comment saying that, like Tomasz described, a lot of the youth work is project-based. And there's a rather touching topic comparing these processes to fashion world, people wearing winter collection, but you've already finished the next spring collection. So sort of moving towards the next project cycle and so on. So Tomasz mentioned that these results are highly positive, and they can, they give us a lot to think about. How could we make sure that these projects go on and they can further improve them? I want to end with European identity once more. I was reminded of the words of Jean Monnet, who was one of the founders of European Union, obviously. And he famously said that nothing is possible without human beings, and nothing is lasting without institutions. So programs and processes, they need both committed people and strong structures. So we need to be sure that there are people in the youth field. We need to be sure that the structures are okay. So we know that there are people in the youth field. We know that there are structures. So last question, how do you see the future? Will it bring about more cooperation between neighboring countries? Let's say in the next 3 or 4 years. And that question goes to all of you.
I think it's difficult to say. I think that definitely the motivation to cooperate is definitely there on the side of the participants and on the side of the beneficiaries. So in terms of the people, and I hope it does, because like we were saying before, it would be weird to have these drives to work together and drives to do youth work together cut just because the program boundaries are set in a specific way. So I think this is all I can say.
Thank you, Andrea, and thanks for contributing to this dialogue. Sonja and Tomasz.
Maybe just, I'm totally there with Andrea. I think we have, the motivation is there to continue the cooperation. I guess the hesitation comes a bit from the fact that we're living in very difficult and changing political times, and that we will need to see how things are moving. So it's possible that it will be difficult to secure the finances for the whole sector in which we are working, given that there might be other priorities like security issues on the line. So I think we're all a little bit reflecting on how this bigger political picture that we're seeing at the moment might impact on our field. But very important, I think, what Tomasz and Andrea said, that there is so much motivation there and the will to continue. So let's hope it can be put also in practice, and that we will see at least cooperation in the future that is not less than what we're seeing at the moment, that we can maybe increase it, maybe extend it, but at least not decrease it.
So thank you, Sonja, for these thoughtful comments and for joining us. Tomasz, you had to wait at first, but now you get the last word. Thanks for joining us, and after your talk, we'll thank the audience. So last words from Tomasz.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. And I would like to say that, of course, we observe in the past that the developments are being not linear. I mean, it's not that we are growing constantly, but there are sometimes moments of going down and underdeveloping in all different contexts of our own program or the geopolitics or COVID pandemic and so on. But in general, I think the young people and the civil society that youth is so much constituting is strong, is growing, is collaborating across borders. We could see in the neighboring countries, but also in the European Union, how much young people are positive about staying together and collaborating. So I see the future in positive colors, even though it does not need to be really a development that will go step by step up, but we might still experience a bit of going down, and hopefully together we will just come across those obstacles. So let's stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomasz. And of course, big thanks to you, all of the audience, for joining us on our first Youth Research Dialogue in 2025.
Yeah, and as usual, this stream will be available afterwards for you to rewatch, and we also encourage you to share it with your colleagues and friends.
Yeah, and thank you also from my side, also to Tommy and to Magoy and to the speakers. We have the next Youth Research Dialogue on 29th of April. We will talk about competence development and capacity building for youth work. And I hope we see you there. Just, come to our website and check out our social media pages. Yeah, thanks a lot and see you soon.